Hello everyone and welcome to Southridge. If this is your first time joining us in this format, we want to offer a few tips on how to make the most of this experience. So be sure to crank up the volume during the music and actually sing along. Don't worry, we can't hear you. Musicians, you can download the music charts below the video, grab your instrument and play along. Now for any kids participating with us, don't worry if you don't know or can't read the words. Just sing. You can dance, you can make music of your own. We're just so happy when you join in with us. Now, if English isn't your first language or you're experiencing hearing challenges, we encourage you to turn on the closed captioning on this video or download the transcripts for this morning's message. And be sure to download the Southridge app. This is the best way to stay connected and informed about everything that's going on here at Southridge. It's completely free and it's super easy to use. But for the next hour, I invite you to engage with this experience just as if you were with us, surrounded by a community of diverse, curious, open-minded, and inclusive people, all desiring to tap into the power and presence of God together as we worship, pray, listen, laugh, and grow. I mean, there might be some things that we do or say today that really resonate with you, and that's great. There might also be things that stretch and challenge you, and we think that's good too. Ultimately, we encourage you to engage openly, thoughtfully, honestly, and wholeheartedly, trusting that the God we're here to connect with is a God who, above all else, is love. So as we begin our time together, wherever and whenever you are, whether this is your first time with us or if you've been around forever, we hope that for the next hour you feel like you're among friends. Welcome to Southridge. We're glad you're here.
God of ages, be my anchor, be my light and be my shield, be my strength and my confession, be my song, be my victory in my battles. I'll remember you will keep me in perfect peace. You are faithful, my defender. You are good, you will always be. You have set me free, change this heart into your home, and ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong, and I will live to see love invading grace unbroken. Ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong. Let my light burn with compassion, like a fire that never dies. Build your church and build your kingdom here. For this cause, I'm giving up my life. You have set me free, change this heart into your home, and ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong, and I will live to see your love invading grace unbroken. Ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong. to Jesus, come back home. 'Cause He is greater than the fears you face. Who I love, come home where you belong. 'Cause you have set me free, changed this heart into your home, and ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong, and I will live to see your love and faith and grace unbroken. Ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong. Ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong. Ever I'll be with you. I'm back where I belong.
Holy Spirit, come and make me whole. Free me from the grip of sin's control. Mend my body and restore my soul, to make loving you my only goal. Jesus, your love so strong and sure. For every curse, you are the cure. We bring you our impossible. Healer of all, your love is the miracle.
Lord, I'm weary, come and give me rest. Be the comfort in my loneliness, and bring healing to my illnesses. Free from power that threatens to possess.
Jesus, your love so strong and sure. For every curse, you are the cure. We bring you our impossible. Healer of all, your love is the miracle. Breathe, just breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe, just breathe. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe, just breathe. Breathe in, breathe out.
diverse community of imperfect people.
who see the church as less of something to go to
and more as a life to be lived and shared with others.
We are continually growing in what it means to love one another.
Fighting for unity rather than fighting over unnecessary arguments.
We are living to serve this world in the way of Jesus, serving those in need and those on the margins.
Knowing that friendship truly makes a difference.
So if you're coming with questions or curiosities,
Hurts or frustrations.
joys or celebrations.
Wondering if the church can bring clarity or hope,
Or simply a place to belong.
We invite you to be at home with us,
We invite you to grow with us.
we invite you to explore with us.
and we invite you to belong with us.
Welcome to Southridge.
We're glad you're here.
Well, hey there, my name is Carrie Jones, and I serve as one of the Vineland location pastors here at Southridge. And we're so glad that you're participating with us, and we trust that this time has already been really meaningful for you. So I'm here in our Vineland location. If you've never joined us in person at one of our physical Southridge locations, we'd love to have you consider joining us in person when you're ready and able. And while we're so grateful to have this online platform to share in this experience from wherever and whenever we find ourselves, we love it even more when we can gather together as a community. Now, if you do in fact come out, please come and say hello to myself or Nate or Carly or one of our amazing volunteers here in Vineland, and we'd love to get a small gift into your hands as a way of showing our appreciation for taking the time to come and join us in person. We also have monthly welcome lunches for anyone who's looking to learn more about our community and just want to meet some great folks over some delicious food. And you can find more out about our welcome lunches on the events section of our website. And we'd absolutely love to meet you. Now, if for whatever reason you're not able to or not comfortable with joining us in person, please know that that doesn't in any way exclude you from participating in community with us. And if you need to touch base with a pastor for any reason, simply fill out one of our Connect cards and we'd love to hear from you. Now, for those of us who call this community home, one of the ways that we practice togetherness and express our gratitude to God and our generosity to others is through our regular financial contributions. And this is one of the ways that we can invest our lives in what God is doing in and through our church family and make a difference across our region and across our world. And all of our online giving options are available on our website. And so if you're able to give this week, I invite you to do so in a spirit of love and generosity. And we thank you in advance for your faithfulness. Well, that's it from me. Now we're going to hear this week's talk together. And as we do, I invite you to remove as many distractions as possible and listen in to what God might want to be saying uniquely to you.
Well, we are in the fourth week of our community's journey through the epic story of the early church as recorded in the New Testament book of Acts. And for a bit of a recap, here's your previously on the making of a movement, where in week 1 of this series, we learned that everything that was about to unfold was all a continuation of the work of Jesus, whose earliest followers had witnessed and actually hung out with Jesus after his resurrection from death. But then after Jesus ascended to the heavenly realm, his followers weren't quite sure what was going to happen next. And so they waited patiently on God for the things that Jesus said were to come. And then last week we encountered the coming of the Holy Spirit, God's personal presence in those who are putting their trust in him, coming like a holy breath or a holy wind or a holy fire that was lighting up their community and their communication together, all of which culminated in the final verse from last Sunday in Acts 2:41 that says, "Those who accepted the message of Jesus, they were baptized, and about 3,000 were added to their number that day." So far, this is a story that has moved from a few dozen who had followed to a few hundred who had witnessed to a few thousand who had put their faith in Jesus, who had believed. And we can see that this movement is growing and was really on the verge of something significant happening. And so today, that's where we pick up the story simply with the question, what happened next? And if you have a Bible, if you have access to a Bible, you could turn to the end of Acts chapter 2 or follow along here with the words on the screen where we continue in Acts 2:42 that says those that were believing the message, putting their faith in Jesus, they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. What we see next is that in response to everything they had seen and experienced so far, this rapidly expanding movement of people now devoted themselves altogether to 4 significant things. It says the apostles' teaching, to fellowship, to the breaking of bread, and to prayer. And I want to unpack each of these a little bit for us. First, it says that they devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching. Now, we learned a couple of weeks ago that the apostles were a unique set of Jesus' followers. Those that had been with him from the beginning throughout his entire earthly ministry, and all of whom who had had firsthand encounters with Jesus in resurrected bodily form. And now these apostles essentially had one message that they kept sharing over and over and over again. That though Jesus of Nazareth was killed by the rulers of their day, God had raised him to life, proving that he was Lord and Savior over all things. And the Apostle Peter actually, he declares this message throughout the early parts of Acts, this you killed, but God raised message, no less than 5 times throughout the first 5 chapters of Acts. This was their teaching. This was their good news. And this was the message that the entire movement centered around and was built upon, and was that first thing that these early followers of Jesus devoted themselves to. Now, next it says they devoted themselves to fellowship. Now, unless you're a Lord of the Rings fan, you've maybe never even used or maybe even heard the word fellowship unless you've been to like a church picnic. And frankly, it's probably not the best word these days to really capture what it meant here. Because for me, fellowship, it kind of sounds like people, a group of people wearing khakis and gently sipping coffee and saying the word blessed a lot. But what's interesting is that the Greek word here, the Greek word is a word called koinonia. And there's actually no single word exact translation in English. And so fellowship is the best we've got in most of our English Bibles. But koinonia more literally means to share or to have in common. The koinonia is about a bond or an interconnectedness, an interdependence in how you're living with others. Think of like a band of brothers or a soulful sisterhood, a group of people sharing life together in oneness and unity, not just going to some cheesy church meeting. And it was this koinonia, this depth of relationship that was the second thing that these believers were devoting their lives to. Now, third, it says they devoted themselves to the breaking of bread. And this one probably needs a little bit of explanation as well, because on the surface, it could kind of sound like this movement had an anger issue with baguettes. And interestingly, scholars actually have some debate about what exactly, like practically speaking, the writer Luke was getting at with this phrase. Because this phrase, as it's translated, the breaking of bread, it wasn't at the time a common description of a meal or any known ritual at the time. No, this was new. And this was unique to this movement. But when you connect the dots of what Luke is describing here to his earlier gospel, as well as some of the later Christian writings, we see that this idea is best understood as kind of a blend of a full course dinner party together, but one that was always initiated with a toast to Jesus. that it was a celebration of Jesus, a celebration of all that Jesus had done, following a pattern that Jesus had shown them. By breaking bread and by sharing a cup of wine, it was a celebration of the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. The bread and the wine representing his body and blood that was given for the world, what we have come to now know as the Lord's Supper or communion. And it was this regular sort of dinner party celebration, all in honor of Jesus, that was this third kind of feature of life that this movement had committed itself to together. And then fourth, it says they devoted themselves to prayer. Now, we heard about this a couple of weeks ago, that from the earliest days after Jesus' ascension, this community prayed continually. They prayed in order to maintain their spiritual connection and relationship with Jesus. They prayed to seek and discern God's will for their movement. They prayed that they would continue to become all that God wanted them to become. But what's interesting about how the commitment to prayer is described here is that some translators would say that this is actually better translated as the prayers. That they devoted themselves to the prayers more specifically, prayers that they had been given. This would have included their psalms for sure, but most significantly centered around the prayer that had been given to them by their Lord. The prayer that Jesus taught them to pray in Luke chapter 11, which we read just this past week, if you're following along in our Luke reading plan, what we now know as the Lord's Prayer. That this was a commitment not just to sort of make it up as you go, asking God to meet all of your wishes kinds of prayers, but actually the kinds of prayers that kept them longing for and living into God's kingdom coming on earth as it is in heaven. This is what happened next. This is what this movement did next. That not only did they receive God's Spirit, and thousands had responded in repentance and baptism, but now they were actually reorienting their entire lives around who Jesus was and all that he continued to do. By fully devoting themselves to the apostles' teaching that Jesus is in fact Lord. By embracing a oneness together, a oneness in Jesus that meant life was no longer going to be lived for yourself or by yourself. By keeping the fire hot through getting together regularly, gathering regularly to celebrate who God is and all God had done. And by asking God for more and more and more of it to come in their lives, in their community, again on earth as in heaven. And it's actually out of this devotion that this became a real hinge point in the story. A hinge point in the movement that began to change absolutely everything in their lives. Listen to what we continue to read, picking it up in verse 43, where it says, "Everyone was filled with awe at the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles. All the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone who had need. Every day they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people." Friends, this is the first picture that we get of the very first church and the actual lives they lived together in this movement. And I don't know about you, but I find it compelling. That can't you just see and hear, if not feel, the life-changing, if not world-changing potential? It says that everyone was filled with awe. That this was an awesome experience, like an aura in the air of all that God was doing among them. And though it says here that they were in awe of the many wonders and signs performed by the apostles, remember from week 1 of this series that this book is sometimes referred to as the Acts of the Apostles, but that it might even be more aptly named the Acts of Jesus through the apostles. That they were in awe of all that Jesus was still doing, that Jesus was doing through them. That because they kept trusting in the apostles' teaching and that Jesus was Lord and that his risen spirit was now in them, the miracles of Jesus, they just kept on flowing. It says that all the believers were together and that they had everything in common. Here's where you start to get the clearer picture of koinonia. You know, though we learned last week that this movement, it was actually growing across ethnic and social boundaries, and still there was so much more of that yet to come in the story. But because of Jesus, this diverse group of people, this diverse movement found a way to share in their common humanity. That through Jesus, they were able to live like they had everything in common. And out of that, they became each other's keepers. It says they were selling their possessions to look after each other's needs, just like Jesus had taught them in Luke chapter 12. So that your need became my need. And if I had a little more, maybe even that vacant lot I was holding for retirement, I'd be inclined to sell it to look after the needs of my newfound siblings in Christ. It says they met together daily with glad and sincere hearts. Whether they were gathering in the temple courts, there was a daily opportunity there, or meeting in each other's homes, whoever was hosting the party that day. It was kind of like there was this unending party going on throughout Jerusalem, all in honor of this king named Jesus. You might think of it kind of like, the Grape and Wine Festival going on, in Niagara this weekend, and yet the primary source of cheer was the Holy Spirit among them. And not only was everyone invited to the party, but everyone began to want to get in on it. It says that they enjoyed the favor of all the people. That as people looked on, seeing everyone being included, seeing everyone being looked after, seeing everyone celebrating what God had done in Jesus and how God had unleashed his spirit of love into their lives, the world around them couldn't help not just like what they were seeing, but want to get all in on it as well. All as the early answers to the devoted prayers of the believers that God's kingdom would come and expand on earth right there and right then, just as in heaven. And as a result, the final sentence of Acts chapter 2 says this. It says, "And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved." From a few dozen to a few hundred to a few thousand, this movement began to expand on the daily. With the saving work of God on visible and tangible display in people's lives, not described here as some future destination or disembodied salvation, but a saving to actually be able to enjoy the awe of all that God had done and was doing through Jesus. A saving to know that you were invited to the party and that you belong to the family, a saving to participate in this koinonia together. A saving to actually tap into the very real joy of giving and receiving, of living with an abundance mentality to ensure that all needs were met for everyone everywhere, and a saving to keep praying for and participating in the coming of God's kingdom that Jesus had been proclaiming was available here and now. Friends, this was the making of a movement. The movement of the very first church that began to set a trajectory that has been changing the world. And it's a movement that we believe is not over. And a movement that we believe we are all invited to get in on, invited to participate in. And frankly, it is the movement That as a local church here in Niagara, we are aspiring to propagate and participate in, to experience and extend the saving work of God in our lives and in the lives of others across our communities in Welland and in Vineland and St. Catharines, as we follow the vision of the church that we see here in the very first church. But you know what I find most inspiring about this, maybe most empowering about this description, but also probably most convicting? It's that while it ends with Jesus continuing and doing more and more of his saving work, the vision for the church actually opens with, and then everything flows from, the devotion of the believers. You know, that you might be able to sum up this passage simply saying that they devoted and Jesus saved. That they devoted themselves fully and completely to the work and the way of Jesus. And through that, Jesus saved not only their lives and their community, but the lives of others around them. And while throughout this whole look at the story of Acts, I want us to make no mistake that everything we read is that continuation of the work of Jesus. What's wild is that because of God's radical and free invitation to humanity for us to be Jesus's image bearers and conduits of his risen Spirit, the power of the movement, what we see here is that the power of the movement is actually amplified and multiplied by human lives that are devoted to him. That what we see at the end of Acts chapter 2 is that lives devoted to Jesus participate in the power to save the world. And isn't that a wild opportunity and a wild invitation that the church, when it is filled with people who are fully devoted to the words and way of Jesus, the church actually stewards the power to participate in and extend the saving work of Jesus to others in very real and tangible ways and in awe-inspiring ways right here and right now among us. And so I think the question for us, from the picture and story of the very first church here in Acts, especially if we long for or want to get in on more of this saving work for Jesus, I think the question for us is, what are our lives most devoted to? What are our lives devoted to, and what are the results or outflows of our devotion? Because the truth is, I think there's plenty of options in life to devote yourself to devote your life to. And that was true for Jesus's first followers. For some of them, their original devotion had been the family business, to carry on the fishing trade, to make it in the marketplace, to just try to follow the somewhat steady path towards a secure and stable life. For others, it had actually been their political ambition, that they had this vision and ideology for how things should be, or maybe more so for what was wrong with the powers to be. And they've been giving their lives to try to take the power back. For others, it had been pure sort of material gain and the pursuit of pleasure, colluding with the rich and the powerful at the expense of their own moral compass, all to try to have and hold on to as much as they could. And for some others, it had actually been religious zeal, believing that if they could just figure out all of the right answers and then put on a show of obedience, as a show of piety as best they could, at least in comparison to those sinners over there, then hopefully God would bless them, if not in this life, then in the life to come. And for all of them, it wasn't until their lives were absolutely turned upside down and inside out and completely reoriented in full devotion to Jesus at the center of their lives, that it changed absolutely everything. That they experienced and then began extending the saving work of Jesus in their own lives and in the lives of others. I invite us to consider, what are our lives devoted to? And for some of us, I'm sure at times it is just the classic pursuit of happiness. You know, the next thing, the next car, the next home reno or upgrade, the stable retirement one day. For some of us at times, it's probably trying to have the picture-perfect household. You know, the successful kids that we can brag about, or the Instagram-worthy pets, or maybe that we can manage the superhero schedule. Sometimes is health and fitness that kind of becomes our sole devotion. I got to keep up the workout streak, or try to have the perfect diet, or keep the beach body ready. Sometimes is it just how we navigate our relationships, that we want to be popular, we want to be liked, and it's kind of people-pleasing at all costs, even if we compromise some of our values. And friends, if and when any of these other things are at the center for us, or are our utmost devotion, where does that end up leaving Jesus and the saving work of his kingdom? Where does Jesus then get oriented in our lives? Does Jesus simply become an optional, feel-good add-on, when interested? Or does the faith community simply become a formula, or a program to assuage my conscience or some fear of the afterlife? Does it become a place to simply help look after my kids once in a while and hopefully teach them some values along the way? Or does the church become something simply to shop around, especially when the latest version just ain't doing it for me anymore? And friends, in all of this, what saving might we be missing out on? And might we be missing out on sharing with others that the very first church fully devoted themselves to, and as a result saw their movement rapidly expand by Jesus' activity in and through them? So my encouragement for us this morning is, what if, like the very first church, we fully devoted ourselves to the apostles' teaching, to trusting that Jesus is in fact Lord, and that his kingdom is coming and will inevitably and ultimately come in a way that is so good for us, but that we can participate in living in it and sharing it right here and right now? What if we devoted ourselves to the koinonia, to actually sharing life together, to embracing our shared humanity and looking out for each other's needs, seeing one another as one in community? What if we devoted ourselves to regularly being together, to celebrate who God is and all that he's up to, gathering regularly, whether in this space or also in our homes or in our missional communities, Norm's Place and our Harvest Kitchen and Caribbean gatherings, where we can celebrate the gift of community with Jesus right at the center of it all? And what if we devoted ourselves to praying continually, daily, asking God for his will to be done and for his kingdom to come in our lives, in our church, and in our world, just as it is in heaven? To help inspire us this morning, and as a celebration of some of the wonders and signs that Jesus continues to be up to among us these days, we have the opportunity to celebrate baptism. Baptism in the lives of several people across our community, who in their own lives and their own stories are taking a step of devotion to Jesus through the baptism celebration. And my prayer is that as we hear these stories, and in our locations where we'll celebrate these baptisms, that not only can we celebrate what Jesus is up to in their lives, but we can be inspired in our own step of devotion towards Jesus, wanting to fully devote ourselves to his work and his way to experience more of his saving activity among us. We're so grateful for what he is up to, and I'm just inspired by the work he's up to in these lives. So may we be inspired together. Let's check out these stories.
Growing up, everyone in my family was very open with each other about faith. It was always a safe place for me to talk about my faith. In high school, I felt like there was a lot of ups and downs with friendships and everything, and God was always just like a constant I felt like I was always waiting for this like moment in my life where I knew that I needed to get baptized, or like I knew everything about the Bible or everything about faith. I quickly learned that it's not like me who's like doing the waiting, but God is just like there waiting for me. I feel really ready to just fully put my trust in Him and let Him lead my life the way He wants it. So I watched this movie called Jesus Revolution, and in the movie there was a scene of someone being baptized. It was really significant for me to see that because it made me realize that like being baptized is like Jesus reaching out for you, and it's kind of like a step that I'm taking to lean in towards that and let Him bring me home.
Well, life for me early on was kind of had trials pretty young, and I don't think I knew what I believed in exactly, but I believed in something bigger than myself. You're looking for something to fill this hole in you, because that's what it does. Like trauma as a young person just leaves a hole in you. So I struggled with all kinds of addiction and all kinds of anything I could find to fill the hole. Going back to school, I dropped out. And I got pregnant, and I had my daughter, and very soon after lost my partners. And that was something that created this, it widened the hole. I ended up having like a suicide attempt, and I was resuscitated and brought back to life. I decided the next morning, all right, fine, I'm going to church Sunday. I got to watch a baptism take place that day. It was moving to watch them share their faith in such a beautiful way. Having come to understand God now the way that I do, I've realized that I am so grateful to know Him now in the way that I do, to feel Him in my heart the way that I do, and it's time for me to also just represent that in an actionable way.
I was born premature, but in a very loving family. I can recall a little bit about going to church at my younger years. In my 20s is when I started my own family. So I felt, okay, after rebelling, I wanted to relax. I had 6 kids altogether. I got 3 boys, 3 girls. I love every one of them. I got into a fight with my wife, and my wife kicked me out. So the cops had made a call here to Southridge. But everybody here treated me with open arms. And I started coming to devotion, observing people here, led me to believe that now He's always been here for me, and I just hadn't seen Him. My understanding of baptism is it's an end of one part of my life and a beginning of a whole new life. I need a little bit more help than just myself, so I'm surrendering myself to Jesus Christ in order to help.
I've been coming to Southridge my entire life. Coming to Movers and Shakers growing up and Riot when I was just at the end of elementary school. Just experiencing His love for the first few years of my life was just amazing. When COVID came upon this world, I really took a hit on my faith, and I started following God less. It took me a few years to realize that God has pulled me out of a place where I was pretty far down. It's like, if He can pull me out of anywhere, so why wouldn't I follow Him? When I prayed and I wanted to hear His voice, and He brought me to that passage of just growing as a person spiritually, it really sparked something in my body to get baptized as the next step of publicly showing that I'm a follower of Christ and that I love God. And it doesn't mean to me that I'm gonna stop doing exactly what I'm doing. I'm still gonna continue to grow my faith and become closer to God. It's a lot more exciting now, because now I wake up and I don't just sit around and play video games. I wake up and then I go spend time with God, and it's definitely more fulfilling and makes me feel a little more whole.
As a child, my faith was very strong. I was raised in a Catholic home. I had some trauma in the family home and just in life in general. I started to move away from the church, and my faith started to get broken. I had a severe trauma. I lost a baby at a very young age as a teenager. I was 15 at the time, and now I wanted to return to my foundational faith, which is how I was raised, which is through the church. So there's a few reasons as to why I would like to be baptized. It physically represents the relationship that I'm entering with God and with Jesus. So faith it's cured that loneliness. Believing in Jesus and putting my faith and trust into God and Jesus is healing that.
As a child, I was raised Catholic. When I did get married, when I was 21, I had 3 kids in a row, and I was in a really abusive relationship, but it was my first relationship. After 8 years of it, I decided I can't do this. Somebody out of the blue came to me and said, I have money. I want to give you the money to get out of town. And the next day I went to a safe house and I moved to Calgary. Now I'm with Tom, and yeah, it's working out. We've been together 20 years, and he's my rock. Tom and I hit a roadblock, and we were actually at a park, and Tom came to me, and he said, Judy, guess what? I got us in a shelter. So then when I went to church, I got goosebumps as soon as I walked in the door, and I said, this is it. I mean that I want to be baptized. I want him to know that I will go as far as I can to prove to him that I'm faithful. When they put you under, that's all gone. That's going to be kind of gone in God's eyes. And when I come up, I'm free of it. And then I even love more.
I lived in an alcoholic, abusive home. I was always told I was stupid and never going to amount to nothing. I got in with the wrong crowd. And it started to take me down a dark path. I left home at 17. An older guy came up to me one day and gave me a bag of weed. I started selling marijuana to be able to eat and to be able to pay for my place to live. I couldn't quit. And I thought the only way of quitting would be to take my life. I attempted suicide. I took all my medication again. And then when I awoke from the coma, my dad and my good friend Phil, and I hadn't spoke to my father in 20 years. I don't know why. I forgave. That moment that I woke up is a gift from God. And from that moment on, I've started to build a fantastic relationship with my father. I was talking to my friend Phil, and I was telling him I wanted to volunteer at the church. But giving back is helping me in so many ways. I want to get baptized because I want to be cleansed. I want to be reborn, and I want to let God and Jesus into my heart and into my soul.
I don't care what it looks like, don't care how it sounds. I just want to be where you are. Your presence is better than all that I've found. I just want to be where you are. Well, I've heard the rumors of the places you've been, where your presence has set hearts on fire. You did it before, you will do it again. It's only a matter of time. So why not right now? Why not right now? Why not right now? Why not right now? Well, I felt the stirring deep in my soul, a whisper that says love is more. It's a holy desire for the greater things, to see them like never before. You'll see you like never before. Well, I've heard the rumors of the places you've been, where your presence has set hearts on fire. If you did it before, you will do it again. It's only a matter of time. So why not right now?
flow. Let the rain of your presence fall. Let the rivers of healing flow. Let it come, let it come. Let the wind of your spirit blow. Let the rain of your presence flow. Let the rivers of healing flow. Let it come, let it come. Let the wind of your spirit blow. Let the rain of your presence fall. Let the rivers of healing flow. Let it come, let it come. Let the wind of your spirit flow. Let the rain of your presence fall. Let the rivers of healing flow. Let it come. Why not right now? Why not right now? Why not right now? Why not right now? Let our hunger move heaven and our passion stir faith. We're a people who are called by your name. When we speak, it brings healing in Jesus' name. Let your kingdom break out of this place. Oh, your presence just can't be contained. Oh, so let the door swing open wide. Let the church be full of light. Let the streets feel your revival. Let it come, let it come. Let the door swing open wide. Let the church be full of light. Let the streets feel your revival. Let it come, let it come. Let the door swing open wide. Let the church be full of light. Fill the streets with your revival. Let it come, let it come. Let the wind open wide and let the church be full of light. Fill the streets with your revival. Let it come. Why not right now? Why not right now? Why not right now? Why not right now? Why not right now?
Thanks for joining us today. We hope you felt inspired and challenged by our time together. Now, we know that for what we've heard today to become a reality in our daily lives, it's going to take more than this 1 hour a week we spend together. It requires a moment-by-moment, 7 days a week commitment to practicing the way of peace and the way of Jesus. And that's why we provide a host of ways to continue to lean into God's presence while we're away from each other. As always, you can click the Practice This Week button below the player for our daily spiritual exercises to continue to develop the muscles we've started building today. If it helps, you can also opt into the Spiritual Practices notifications on our app to get those helpful reminders every morning as you start your day. And if you'd like a more personal conversation with somebody about anything that's going on in your life, we invite you to reach out to our location pastors who will follow up with you privately. Simply fill out our Connect card, which you can find on our website or app. Now that's all for now. Thanks for joining us and have a great week.